So Realm's not allowed to do anything ever again, but that's beside the point. Welcome back, everyone.
Insurgents.
Okay, but like if we just banned people when they suggested stuff we didn't like or we didn't like what they suggested, Vorn would have murdered me with like a garroting wire for Ishizoku.
Yeah, but this is a little bit different. Even Realm would probably agree on that. What just happened?
That's fair. So we're moving into themes and storyline.
Themes and storyline.
So I want to bring us back to genre, themes and genre. So, all right. So when Vorn suggested this, he suggested it as like a sports anime type, right? And I've seen a lot of sports anime, modern and old. So that is the one genre in which I have kind of bridged the age gap in terms of what I've seen, because I've tried to watch a little bit of almost every sports anime I can find, if not the whole show. And one of the things that I use to define sports anime is, in a sports anime, typically the focus is sports, right? And typically, well, you could also normally consider it a shonen or a school life or whatever else is happening in the background. Sports would be how most things are solved, and like the center of almost everything that's happening would be a conflict between teams, a conflict between sports, some sort of tournament arc. And I understand that this is a sports anime. Like I would hesitantly call it one, but I'd almost say that even if it's not a primary school life slice of life, I'd say that the three have maybe equal control over the show. I actually wouldn't say that the sports is dominant.
No, it's
simply
not.
Because there's a massive amount of the show is donated to what I would consider slice of life and school life. And so I think it almost walks the line of being or not being sports anime.
So that's where you brought up earlier you brought up that it feels more about the character's development, but I would disagree because, and this is going to be something I'll bring up more in the character section, I'm sure, the characters don't exactly develop much here.
No, but some of the characters that do have some development, sometimes it's outside of the game. And that's not as common in sports anime. In sports anime, typically characters will develop through playing matches against other people and reacting to other people in a more rival or enemy type thing. It's like in Prince of Tennis, like most of the character development is done through matches, like the characters learning things that while they're playing.
I would have to say to that, though, that's sports drama. This is sports comedy.
I mean, yeah, I see that, but I still think that, like, I wouldn't necessarily attribute sports as its main. Like, like put that above all other genres that this would fit into.
I'll also say, just discussing sports as a genre, I actually wish sports would do that kind of thing more. Maybe even on the drama end, step away from the sport a bit, because I feel like you could do a lot more with, because it's a school life, but they play the sport, and the sports where the most conflict's going to come from. But stepping away because they're like, when you're in sports, there's a lot of things, like if we were to translate this to a drama, there's a lot in there, like how sports affects them trying to keep up in school and such. It's almost like
compare it to Haikyuu, where in Haikyuu the school is a non-entity.
Yeah.
Like, they are at the school, but school itself and interactions they have with people at the school that aren't part of the team are essentially non-existent.
And if you're back to the Haikyuu recording, I believe that was one of my few criticisms. I could be wrong, but I think that was one of my few criticisms of the show, is I kind of wish they branched away from it.
Actually, I think we talked about how nice it was that they used the volleyball for... We talked about how nice it was that... how much we liked that volleyball and what they were doing with the volleyball facilitated character development. I like that they didn't overload us on
the school despite being in a school.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And okay, I mean, this show doesn't overload you on the school.
No.
It's not school-centric. But it's also not on the level of Haikyuu or any other sports anime in the sheer, like, concentration of sports.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily want to be stuck on one setting in one court or on a similar-looking court that's now in a different school or something.
I understand that. I'm just bringing up, like, sports.
Yeah.
Like, and I know you haven't seen a ton of sports anime. Like, you've seen a fair amount. I've shown you a few, like one or two episodes. We did that day where we were like watching like a bunch of sports anime, and we watched like 2 baseball animes and another one. And on most of them, it was mostly sports. Like, we didn't really see a whole lot of school. And I think that that's not necessarily a good part of the sports anime genre, but it is what happens. Like, that is just kind of something that does happen in a majority of sports-related manga and anime work, is they really lean into the sports. Because if you lean out of the sports too much, you fall into, oh, well, it's a school life, but they're also in this club. And it becomes like a club activity that's on the side of the main kind of school life, slice of life, rom-com, or drama that's going on. So I think the line is fine, and so a lot of authors choose to, like, just drive it home. And this author did not. So this is not like a driven home sports anime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I do think that it does help it stand out a little bit more. Like, because I went into this and I was kind of worried it would be like, hey, I know you like it, and I'm sorry.
I really scarred people with Prince of Tennis.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like Prince of Tennis, where it felt like every single episode was going to be a new conflict with the same exact sport on the same exact field, and just better animated.
Just wait till we get to Prince of Billiards and Prince of Bowling. You liked Prince of Bowling.
I don't remember. What was that one again?
It's one of the ones she showed us in high school.
With the Aozu and Akazu. The drinks.
I thought billiards was gonna be like pool table.
Yeah, it was the pool table one where they were like, if you lost, you had to drink that disgusting juice.
Oh,
yeah.
You're still talking about Prince of Tennis. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no.
I just brought it up. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't want it to fall into that formula, because that might be why I didn't mind the sports having a little bit less of a focus than Haikyuu or Prince of Tennis.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to express what I've seen in my experience of sports anime, which is, while I am perhaps far outstripped by, you three and other genres, sports is really something I've gotten into.
I will say, I do actually have a criticism of the show based on how it handled this. Why I didn't like this, because I'm not completely averse to sports.
Well, let's move into that then.
Yeah,
because I've explained my reasoning.
Because I'm not completely averse to sports. I actually liked Haikyuu, and even though I didn't like Prince of Tennis, I disliked the sport here for similar reasons to Prince of Tennis. Because it feels very selfish. Prince of Tennis, this was the nature of the sport.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to give it a small pass on that. I just didn't care for tennis as the sport in the anime. Mm. Here, though, soccer, it's still such a team game, but whenever they're playing a sport, it's always focused on one character, and that one character does most of the work. It removes the teamwork element, so it makes the sport a little bit less interesting to watch overall as it's happening, in my opinion.
Well, and that's an interesting thing. Quick survey. How do you feel about soccer, Vorn?
I played soccer before. It's a nice game.
I know Nick Nack's a fan of soccer. Like, you'll watch it. What about you, Realm? Like, how do you feel about... I
actively hate soccer.
Thank God. Okay, I did not want to be the only one. But, like, I actually don't like soccer, and I think watching soccer is one of the most boring things in the world. But to put this into perspective, the only team sport that I will actively watch is hockey. So I may have a skewed perspective.
Because they're violent in hockey.
Yes.
You need to watch indoor soccer. Indoor soccer, it's so much more violent than outdoor soccer.
Like, I don't even watch hockey matches. I just watch compilations of, like, red cards and yellow cards.
You watch hockey
at hockey games.
Because hockey fans.
Yeah. So I don't... Soccer is not a sport that I enjoy watching. And it's not a sport that I played. So, I mean, that plays into it. It's not something I grew up with. Mm-hmm. And because of that, watching the soccer was not pleasing to... Why did you put those on the wrong way? Okay. Soccer is not pleasing for me to watch. Like, there's nothing interesting about soccer in my mind to pull me in. Were you kind of feeling that way, Realm?
Yeah, because, like... It honestly, what ended up making me even turn around to the show in the first place was the fact that they had put more emphasis on the slice of life than the soccer itself after, like, the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, I mean, and I really do get that, because soccer isn't my thing. So, like, for me, the slice of life was sometimes more interesting, which is maybe why I saw it in a stronger capacity.
But even as someone who's... I'm not a huge fan of soccer, but I watch it in a passive capacity. I like going to games every once in a while, but I don't follow I don't follow the World Cup or anything like that. Having played soccer for like a year or two, even I could tell they left out soccer has a much higher team element, a lot more emphasis on positions and where people are supposed to move.
Like they did
Yeah.
make a lot of commentary on the fact that like his
They
major
did.
flaw was that he like cannot be a team player until like the last 5 minutes.
They did, but even that doesn't quite, because normally, because he was still passing the ball to people. That's different. Though.
Yeah.
Like, and they do like say, oh, you're playing here, but when the episode's focused on, I'm not going to go to
One of them.
like butt guy.
Yeah. Oh,
He's the
God, I
only
love
one
him.
that the game ever focuses on. You're always
Yeah.
seeing the game as it relates to him, not as it relates to the full team. And I
Which-
think that simplifies soccer down so badly. It makes it a lot less interesting to watch here.
Yeah.
At least for me personally. I know you're not a fan of soccer to begin with, but even
No,
as
but
someone who
I
passively
see what you
can be
mean.
okay at soccer.
I see what you mean.
I think you
It's-
guys have a misunderstanding of me. My rule of sports is why watch when you can play?
Oh no, I'm
I like
actually right there
playing
with you for
tennis.
some of that. Like I would much rather play basketball than watch basketball.
Yeah.
I would. I'm okay watching or playing tennis. And
Well,
volleyball.
my favorite brand of sports is esports anyway. So
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
shut up.
Oh.
Nerd.
I'm an
Nerd.
MLG pro.
The Virgin esports player.
God,
But,
I feel like a cringe lord for saying that.
You better. You better. Ooh, that was bad. But I will say, so you said that one of the things about it was the focus on the individual, and I know soccer is a team sport, right?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I dislike soccer and football and sports like that, I
Mhm.
have actually watched an uncomfortable amount of live games in my life because of family members. Like I have been forced and dragged out
Mhm.
at any day and time to watch relatives play, so I have a functional understanding of the game, and I understand that like teamwork is really important, and like I did see that too, and I think to me that almost translated in my brain, it translated into, okay, well, if they're focusing on one individual and like what he's thinking and stuff and not really on the sport itself, then it doesn't really feel like a sports moment, it feels like a slice of life moment.
But it all still
Yeah.
came back to the sport and their
Well, yeah,
relationship with the sport.
but
Like,
it didn't feel like they were doing the sport justice
Yeah.
in a sports anime.
yeah, and if the show focused any more on the sport than it already did, I probably would have disliked it.
Yeah, like it felt like the sports were the reasoning for stuff happening,
Yeah.
not the goal or the main like the sports were the reason that things were happening because this is the sports club, but there wasn't a particular like tournament like, oh, we are gonna it wasn't the same with the same intensity that you see in like Haikyuu.
Yeah.
I say because Haikyuu's another new one.
Yeah.
I'd use Prince of
Yeah.
Tennis, but you guys haven't seen enough, and it is different because it's also an individual sport.
Yeah.
But in Haikyuu, there's such like a huge focus on the sport and improving for like winning and like making your way up the totem pole, and oh, it's so massive.
And they have that a bit here. We just
A
don't
bit.
see it in these arcs because they're like,
Yeah.
we want to get to championship. And
Yeah.
the big conflict is Aoyama gonna stay with the team?
Yeah, it's not the typical,
Yeah.
which isn't bad.
'Cause I think the show makes no hit. They don't hide anything.
No.
Like it's like there is a sports anime there over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But I just feel like the sport was the weakest aspect of this show.
Yeah. Also, gag. This entire show, gag series.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Like half the time they weren't even playing soccer.
No.
Like
Oh.
this dude from was it the wrestling team or judo club?
The judo.
Judo.
This dude from the judo club. Like, you do judo. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. And the man, this like rival dude, he just like lifts up his shirt and starts like popping his pectorals and abdominals.
We might want to save these when we get to the character.
That's why I'm not saying his name.
Yeah.
But like, ugh. Like, that's the main conflict. A man who does with his abdominals what Dwayne Johnson does with his pecs. That's the main rival. Just think about that. A man who does with his abdominals what Dwayne Johnson does with his pecs.
And it's funny as hell.
We'll get to that when we get to
Aw.
characters. We'll discuss our thoughts on that later. But yes, the show is, like, even when it is focusing on sports, it is still a gag series at heart, I think.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you had that whole and you have like a whole ass episode where they're playing like online gaming, and it's about
I love
the
that
other
episode.
Clean
Oh,
Freak.
yeah.
Yeah, like that was one of my favorite episodes. The cooking and the gaming.
They have an episode focused on the manga.
My
I love
favorite,
that one
my
was
favorite
really good.
episode, my favorite episode by far was when it wasn't even focusing on Aoyama at all. Well, like not in the direct sense. It was episode 6 where there was just covering this other high school kid that was in their school.
The mangaka.
The mangaka.
Or
The
Clean Freak?
mangaka. The
Okay,
mangaka.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that is my favorite episode of the series.
Okay,
hands down.
mine is the baseball bat. Mine is the invention of the baseball bat and every
Episode 2.
attempted use thereafter.
Episode 2, basically,
Yes.
when it was first introduced.
I have to say the tidal wave scene from the training
Oh,
episode.
the training arc.
Oh god.
Like that's the kind of gag thing you can only get in a soccer gag at sports.
Yeah, like this show, despite anything about its sports, has some genuinely fantastic gags.
Yeah.
Like, hilarious.
That's what I go to sports animes for. It's the gags.
Yeah,
Like that's what makes sports anime to me.
and the absolutely violent, brutal beatdowns that they give the other players. Oh wait, is that just Prince of Tennis? Never mind.
Yeah, that's just you.
the hockey infect.
I just want to see the sport done justice.
We'll maybe aim for another soccer one later. Like I've got a whole list of sports anime that I'll want to get in at some point or another. Right now, I am currently on a crusade. I will speak about it later.
Yeah, I think overall, I think it appears to be the general consensus is the sport was the least interesting part of this show.
Yeah, it didn't help that the sports was not every single episode, the whole episode. That did not help.
Yeah, but that drew it away. I don't think if the sports were actually good in the episodes they did, and they just had a lot of episodes that weren't, I think I'd be fine with the sport.
Yeah, but we don't know what it would be like, so it's not really.
But they don't take much time with. The
True,
sport.
but like
Even in the episode that is focused on
let's
sport.
say they did the soccer with the intensity that Prince of Tennis does tennis. Every episode, constantly, an ongoing tournament arc for 200 episodes.
Yeah, no, that would
probably
be
dislike the series as much as I dislike
Yeah.
Prince of
Yeah,
Tennis.
or Haikyuu, where it's just like a different tournament arc every season for 4 seasons with very little outside effect.
See, but I like Haikyuu because it focuses on the teamwork part of the sport a lot,
True.
as opposed
True.
to this.
Yeah, but from what we can see of this, it doesn't really focus on the
No.
teamwork. So if you can you imagine like
The focus is on the
this?
comedy squarely, though, with a little
Yeah.
bit of character development. So I that's how I when it like once I recognized that it wasn't trying to be your typical sports show, it's more of a comedic. It's more of a parody of a sports show than an actual sports show
Mhm.
with character development. I found myself liking it a lot more than I initially thought.
Yeah, like
'Cause-
I would count this as a gag series.
Yeah, I have a story to tell, and I'll tell it once we get to the end.
Oh, it's kind of like Konosuba
Oh!
with like freaking isekais.
Yeah,
but this
it's
is
like Beelzebub with Shonen.
Well, for the 5 people that know what Beelzebub is.
I'm sorry.
these days.
Okay,
Yeah.
both of those examples, Konosuba and Beelzebub, one's an isekai, the other one's a shonen. But if you look in a lot of listings, they're listed as gag series that parody isekai
Yeah.
and shonen, or create a lot of the major gags used in those shows.
Because if you look at them, they're more like it's the setting, not necessarily the actual story beats that make it in the
Yeah.
genre.
So this does remind me of Konosuba and Beelzebub.
I will say, as far as comedy writing goes, I do think I put this a little lower than Konosuba.
Oh well, of course.
Yeah.
But like the vibe.
But that same idea, yeah.
Yeah.
it's about where I'm judging it.
yeah.
like you
okay.
can get a lot more gags out of like an isekai than you can a sports anime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's just the nature of fantasy, I think,
Yeah.
versus realistic settings.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're like itching to get into characters, so
Yeah.
tune in next time for the characters and everyone's favorite segment. Try harder, everyone.